What's up, gamers? So I'm finally back to making a commentary video after my shitty Vosh memes and my April Fool's video, which I have no doubt in my mind some retard believed. So today we'll be checking out a video titled, A Video About Resident Evil 5 I'll Probably Regret Making, by Ben Plays Games. Now, this came out shortly after IGN's video, which literally called RE5 racist. So I'm very sure this will be filled with highly intelligent takes, so why don't we just hop right into it?
5's release in 2009, a dark cloud swirled above the game with particular ferocity. It was a cloud made up of allegations that the game was, and by extension still is to this day, racist.
Okay, sure, there was a controversy pre-release, but that controversy was pretty small and was only propagated by retarded journalists. I'm pretty sure most people who played RE5 really didn't care and just wanted to, shoot zombies, but, we gotta make everything about racism, dude.
There has been renewed interest and much discussion of that topic recently, in part because it's likely 5 will be the series' next title to receive a remake following the success of 4's, but also because of an article published by IGN a few weeks ago which briefly touched on it.
No, I wouldn't say it briefly touched on it, because that was basically at least half of the point of it. And you could just tell IGN was trying to stir up some shit. And I don't really think there's an actual controversy outside of, journalists and retards on Twitter who have no lives, who have white guilt, fucking shit libs. And, they weren't gonna buy the remake anyway, so why does their opinion even matter? The actual people who are going to buy RE5 remake are fans of RE5 or Resident Evil. They don't give a shit about what some retard on the internet thinks.
Having coincidentally finished a playthrough of Resident Evil 5 myself around the same time, and as a series superfan, it's a subject I also find fascinating and have been thinking about a lot since, so I thought I'd share my opinion while everything remains fresh in my mind.
So having played RE5 myself recently with my good friend Broman, which by the way, do drop him a sub, he's a real cutie, we weren't really thinking about how racist RE5 was. We were just having fun shooting zombies and dropping the N-word.
Also, regardless of where you land on this issue, reasonable, level-headed critiques of topics like this are vital, and as adults we should be able to debate them without malice, so please try and keep it civil in the comments.
Yeah, I guess that didn't go so well, huh?
Right, now before going any further, I think it's important that I share my own view early on, especially when tackling a matter as divisive as this one. To be particularly blunt, yes, I think there are aspects of Resident Evil 5 which are problematic, if not racist.
Blimey, this game is so problematic. It must be changed and improved for a modern audience. Dude, shut the fuck up. Oh my god. Just because you think a game's problematic doesn't mean that it's actually fucking problematic. That is such a buzzword these days for what these retards don't like, I swear to God.
Now, what I'm not suggesting in any way is that there was any deliberate maliciousness on Capcom's part. The examples I'm about to share can mostly be chalked up to a lack of sensitivity.
Oh, Japanese developers, I'm not suggesting that you are racist intentionally, but you are still racist pigs for daring to make a game set in Africa accurate to Africa.
However, regardless of intent, the optics can undoubtedly at times be poor. For those of you unfamiliar with the premise, Chris Redfield and new partner Sheva Alomar, both part of the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, or BSAA for short, are sent to the fictional city of Kajuju in West Africa to investigate an outbreak.
Oh my god, guys, did you hear that? An outbreak. They didn't come to just shoot Africans. It's a zombie outbreak, dude. Oh man, that's fucking hot. Dude, let me see him choke on it, dude.
Freeze!
Not long after arriving, they are set upon by hordes of angry locals infected with the Plaga parasite.
Did you hear that? Angry locals attacked them. So it's not like Chris and Sheva just went in and started shooting a bunch of Africans. No, they were attacked first. So I don't really see what the problem with this is.
And so begins a struggle for survival in an unfamiliar setting. If that sounds a lot like Resident Evil 4's story, that's because it is. And it's that similarity which is often used as the primary argument against accusations levied at 5. Usually, it's something along the lines of, the first few Resident Evils were set in America, and Leon killed parasite-infected Spaniards by the truckload in 4, with neither causing any uproar, so why should a game which uses Africa as a setting and features parasite-infected Africans be any more or less controversial than those titles?
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty sound argument to me. I mean, in RE6, you shoot a bunch of Chinese people. Is that racist too? Like, you shoot a bunch of Spanish people in RE4. Like, what's different? Oh, wait, but I forgot, dude. Those groups of people are white adjacent.
Simplifying discourse to that extent is at best overly reductive and at worst intellectually dishonest. It used to be Spaniards and now it's Africans, why bad? Removes any nuance whatsoever, and the details here are very important.
How is it dishonest, and how does it remove nuance? In RE4, there was a specific group of Spanish people. Just like in RE5, there's also a specific group of African people. So I don't really see what the difference is here. Oh, is it the skin color, dude? Well, I don't think they were thinking about the skin color when they made a game set in Africa, which has a ton of black people, by the way. So it seems you're the one just looking for racism here.
The difference between Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5 is rooted in Africa's colonial past and the unsettling historical underpinnings which accompany it.
Oh boy, dude, here comes the retardation. Let's see how much anti-white bullshit he'll spew.
During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Scramble for Africa occurred, a race between mostly European nations to occupy as much of the continent as they could without coming into direct conflict with one another.
I don't know, dude, sounds pretty base to me. I mean, if you actually look at Africa right now, I think it really needed the European influence.
It saddens me to say that the United Kingdom managed to grab the largest share, with France not far behind.
Uh-oh, looks like his white guild is showing. You know, as an American, I can't imagine being this pathetic.
But they were by no means the only two countries involved. Decolonization began proper in the early 1950s and continued for several decades, which means there are people alive today who lived through the process, and many more who are still reeling from the lasting effects of unwanted Western influence.
No, there are actually plenty of people from those areas that wanted the Europeans to stay. I mean, at one point in one of Griffin's streams, I remember when he was talking about this, like, Jamaican dude who was saying how once the British left, Jamaica, like, turned to complete shit. Like, everything was falling apart. Like, none of the, you know, projects could be completed. It's like, it's funny how these dudes are like, oh, you know, the Africans, they just didn't want the Europeans there. But no, actually, a lot of people did want them there. And it's just funny how these people have never been to these countries themselves and just haven't seen what shitholes they are.
To put it simply, the wounds are still relatively fresh. What has that got to do with Resident Evil 5, I hear you ask?
Yes, please do tell me how you even made that connection.
Well, there's a phrase you might have heard used to refer to Africa, the Dark Continent. First popularised by explorer Henry M. Stanley in his book Through the Dark Continent, it was a phrase which conjured up the impression that Africa was an unexplored, mysterious locale.
No, dude, that's not an impression, that's literally the truth. Africa is the Dark Continent and is completely undeveloped. And if you don't believe this, you must be living in a completely different reality.
Language is a powerful thing, however, and what the Dark Continent also helped many propagate was the idea of Africa being a dangerous, untamed land filled with savages, a place which colonisation would only serve to benefit.
Africa is a land filled with savages. I remember when I was in high school, we had to read a book titled Things Fall Apart. It was also written by an African author. So it was about like a bunch of Africans, and by the way, the Africans were savage in the book. And I remember at one point they like killed a kid with machetes. And it's like, yeah, this is how Africa is. They are savage, so I don't know what you're talking about, dude.
This idea reared its ugly head in many forms, especially in literature, cartoons and similar. I'm not going to show you examples on screen as I'm a big girl's blouse and I'd like to avoid being thrown in YouTube jail.
Yeah, this totally happened in media, dude, but I won't provide any examples for it. Like, dude, just say you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
But I'd suggest reading up on works such as Joseph Conrad's 1899 novel Heart of Darkness, one I actually studied myself at university.
So I haven't read Heart of Darkness myself, although I do know plenty of English teachers don't take too kindly to it and think it's completely a racist, dude. But yeah, I mean, if it's like that in America, I just can't imagine what it's like in good old Britain. You know, I guess that's where you get all your retarded talking points.
Or Surge's 1930 comic Tintin in the Congo. The point I'm trying to make is, Africa and the people who lived there were subject to some pretty awful depictions in literature and other media fairly recently, and as such, it's important that we are aware of them and actively try to avoid further promoting them in the present.
Yeah, let's just erase actual reality and history. Like, dude, Africa isn't fucking Wakanda. It's an underdeveloped shithole. Like, I don't even know what you're going on about.
As a side note, it could be argued that we've not managed to completely escape the practice in the here and now either. I'd say a lot more of the Western films involving Africa I've seen feature gun-toting soldiers, dangerous surroundings and the like, with far less of them shining a light on the positive aspects of the many countries and cultures which exist within it.
Okay, dude, so why don't you tell us one positive aspect of Africa? I'm genuinely curious. And don't say fucking Wakanda, because that's not fucking real.
Looking at specific examples featured in 5, I personally think Capcom is incredibly careless in the way it deploys its imagery. The group beating what can only be presumed to be another person in a sack to death.
It's a fucking horror game. What did you expect them to do? Sing Kumbaya?
The megaphone-wielding leader riling up a baying mob, the execution which follows. Its relentlessness feels like a modern twist on the Dark Continent idea.
It's almost like it's supposed to establish the tone of the game.
The single Western woman who appears outside the main cast, a blonde-haired, provocatively dressed American being dragged away by scary locals, isn't a great look either.
Help! Somebody help me! Help!
And can you guys see who the scary local is? Just use your eyes for a moment, you'll figure it out.
I want to return quickly to what I said earlier, that Capcom wasn't being deliberately malicious, because I really don't think they were.
Then what the fuck's the point of this video?
If you were to ask me what mantra I think they adhered to when creating these early parts of 5, I'd say it was probably little more than do Resident Evil 4 again, but in Africa.
Okay, cool, we've established they just wanted to do RE4 again, but in a different setting. So what's racist about this?
Look at the early village set piece, for example. In 5, you hold off an onslaught of Mangini, the name for those infected,
Actually, it's Magini, but anyway, let's move on.
in a large area, and then do your best to avoid a stronger enemy wielding an axe. Compare that to Leon, who fights Ganado in a large area before he's rushed by a stronger foe, wielding a chainsaw. They are practically identical, and I'm not convinced there was much consideration of anything else beyond that. If there's one part of the game which I think proves that point, it's Chapter 3.
Okay guys, strap in your brain cells for a moment.
The tribesmen are a ridiculous stereotype, to the point I can't see there being any other explanation than that Capcom did not understand why someone would find them offensive. Their outfits, them wielding spears, the whole shebang. I find it difficult to believe that even 15 years ago a Western developer would have designed similar.
Oh really? It's a stereotype? Well, look at this image and tell me this is a stereotype and not reality.
There is in-world cause for what happened. The Type 3 Plagas field test and village youths file allude to the males of the Endopia tribe behaving like their ancestors due to infection, but Capcom giving a reason for their existence does not absolve them of responsibility, especially when that reasoning is so flimsy to begin with.
What responsibility? You're acting like Capcom actually did something wrong? And what makes the reasoning flimsy, dude? I really don't understand. It sounds perfectly reasonable.
Simply justifying their presence is not good enough. You also have to be very careful about how you present them.
No, Capcom doesn't have to be careful about how they present them. It's a fictional video game. They can do whatever the fuck they want, dude. Get over yourself.
It should also be noted that Capcom actually put an embargo on this particular portion of the game for reviewers in 2009, with them not being allowed to talk about it until after Resident Evil 5 had launched.
Yeah, that's because Capcom didn't want a bunch of you fucking retards smearing the game before release. Like, I'd say good on them, because, you know, fuck the shit libs, like, it's not fucking racist.
Also, prior to release, they did diversify the enemies you come up against compared to the groups shown in early trailers.
Yeah, so that means Capcom actually listened to the criticism. Now, I don't think they should have listened, because it wasn't racist in the first place, but now all you retards are still smearing the game as racist, so it's like, I don't think Capcom should have even tried, because there's no winning with you fucking people.
There is evidence that they were actively listening, or were at least aware to some degree of the issues, and that's good news in the present, because Resident Evil 5 is by no means a lost cause in remake terms. Instead, it's a fantastic opportunity to sand down some of the game's rougher edges.
By the way, if you didn't catch that, that's basically another way of saying, please censor the game, Capcom, because I'm a little pussy British fuck.
In addition to putting some more thought into the imagery used throughout, a remake would be a great opportunity to better flesh out the anti-colonial thread that bubbles underneath 5's surface.
Wait a minute, are you saying that RE5 isn't actually racist and actually has an anti-colonialist message? But anyway, I don't think that's actually the message of the game. RE5 has nothing to do with colonialism. I think it's more of a Bill Gates story, because Wesker is a eugenicist who goes to Africa and infects a bunch of Africans. So if you ask me, it's actually a message about Bill Gates. Capcom was warning us from the beginning.
As you progress, it's made very clear that influence by Western pharmaceutical companies are the cause of most of the problems, and Capcom leaning harder into that side of things would be most welcome. Equally, Sheva being better fleshed out with more attention paid to her history and her thoughts regarding what's occurred would help too.
Well, something that I will agree with this video about is that character expansion is always nice, so yeah, I wouldn't mind if they showed more of Sheva, so that's perfectly fine to me, dude. I can't really say anything about this.
Much of her dialogue in the original focuses on Chris and his relationship with former colleague Jill Valentine and nemesis Wesker.
Well, Chris and Jill are basically like best friends at this point, so yeah, I mean, it will kind of focus more on Jill and Chris.
Rather than on her dismay at what has unfolded in her homeland, that would be a much more interesting thread to pull at in a remake. Also, let's maybe make the introductory shot of her something other than the camera zooming in on her arse, Capcom?
Well, I would say something about this, but let's just let Alex Jones speak for me.
I'm an Ellie! Yeah!
Given the level of discourse, I'm reasonably confident Capcom will have learnt their lesson by the time a remake approaches.
No, Capcom, please don't learn your lesson. Listen to the actual Resident Evil fans, and keep it the same, and just let these retards seethe.
But at the same time, I'd also say it's no sure thing, given that fairly recently there was concept art of Street Fighter's Balrog wearing a gorilla suit being produced.
Bruh. That's fucking weak. But, like, you're the one that noticed that, so do you have something to tell the class?
I also want to throw in one last time that I truly and wholeheartedly believe that what we got in Resident Evil 5 was the result of Capcom being extremely insensitive rather than deliberately offensive. But if they are to remake Resident Evil 5 as they have done with other titles in recent years, a huge amount of thought needs to be put into how an updated version is handled.
Nah, the only thought that needs to be put into it is how to make the pew-pewing as fun as possible.
Thanks for watching the video, boys, girls and stars members. If you enjoyed it, do consider liking, subscribing and sharing your thoughts, and fingers crossed, I'll catch you again soon.
Well, I will be doing none of those things, and hopefully I don't catch you again soon. Now, the video isn't over yet though, because I have one last thing to share. So after I watched this absolute quality video, I decided to reply because I just couldn't handle the retardation. And so I said, just wanted to add that those tribal African enemies that are a stereotype according to you, those are based on actual African people. Literally look it up, dude. Africa is tribal other than maybe a few areas. It's not racist, it's just reality. It's interesting that you say that, as the artist who designed them has actually been quoted previously as saying that they are original designs that are not based on any actual African tribe. Oh my god, dude, I can't believe I really have to explain this to you. I'm not talking about a tribe. I'm talking about the African people in general. Many tribal people, again, not talking about a specific tribe, have the spears, wear leaf skirts, have the masks and the face and body paint. This isn't hard, but they don't teach you that in good old Britain, eh? You said they are based on actual African people. I provided a counterpoint which stated that they weren't. If the creator did not look at African people, it should actually be phrased as, they are based on what the designer thought African people looked like, based on a preconceived notion in his head. I hope you can understand why the difference between those statements is an issue. Okay, then tell me the title of the article, or whatever it was that this quote came from. Obviously, I know YouTube is stupid with links, but I want to know what the exact quote was. And either way, if this was his preconceived notion, then it was pretty damn on point. This will be my last response, as I've little to add beyond the content of the video and my response to you. If you're interested in the quote, it's from page 97 of the Biohazard 5 official artworks book. So I did actually try doing what he said, and I did look up this book, and now unfortunately I couldn't find any copy online to find the page from, and if I wanted to see the quote, I would have to buy a copy myself off eBay or something, and you know I'm not doing that. But that was a fun little argument in there. So anyway, now we've reached the end of this video, so just make sure to like, subscribe, and, well, that's all I'm gonna say. Later, guys.